So welcome to a revolutionary episode of the Healed Approach podcast, because today I'm not going to be interviewing my guests. We're going to just be having a chat about collaboration and sustainability in the construction industry. I have no idea where this is going to go. Wish me luck. But before we do get started, I'm just going to introduce our guests. So I'll start from here. We've got... Do you want to introduce yourself, actually?
Yep. So I'm Andy Oram. I work for E.H. Smith Builders Merchants, and I'm the Porotherm Specification Manager for the UK.
Thank you very much. Musketeer number one.
Matt Davies, National Specification Manager at Vandersanden.
Thank you.
So you're Musketeer number two.
Musketeer number two.
Which actually we're the Muskehound, so I'm Dogtanian. So I'm Dave Mills, Lyons and Annoot. We're a brickwork contractor, and I am the Director of Business Development.
Thank you. So this is going to be really weird, me not sitting here and like throwing loads of questions at you. But the whole idea with this was to talk about, you know, how we can drive forward in terms of sustainability in the industry through just having these conversations and collaboration. So what are your thoughts on that?
You need to stop, collaborate, and listen. I think that's a really important first step to take.
Yep.
Okay.
What we've done over the last few months is exactly that, in that order as well. So we've stopped just casting around, just trying to put our messages out into the ether and hoping that something will stick. We've then found the ideal crew to collaborate with, but we also want to listen to what other people have got to say, because there's no point in being in an echo chamber. The point behind collaboration is that you hear other people's points of view and what can you learn from other people, not just within construction, but outside as well.
Yeah, do you know, as well, I think that's a really good point about, you know, not having these conversations in echo chambers. I mean, I talk about that all the time, but I think it, particularly with the whole, this is taking it on a little bit of a tangent, but it's all related to sustainability and what have you, but the whole women in construction conversation as well. And I do feel like that has got to a point where that is also happening in echo chambers, and we all need to be having these open and honest conversations more about all these topics, you know, about the skills gap, about sustainability, you know, about younger people coming into the industry. But how do you stop?
I think, I mean, great Vanilla Ice section there.
Was it Vanilla Ice?
It's Vanilla Ice, yeah.
Okay. I feel too
just shows Andy's age and the fact that I knew it. But I think in terms of the key point there is collaboration, is what as Andy said, because the reality is nothing moves forward without people talking, without people listening. I think, as he said, without people working together. And I think a huge part of probably what the three of us in particular have done over recent times is exactly that. We've probably, I think, learned stuff. I mean, I've definitely learned stuff. You know, I'm coming, both the guys here are from a selling point of view or whatever else, and we're a contractor. So I've definitely learned, and hopefully as well as part of that, you know, they've learned for what a contractor needs, and what we want to do, and what is the way forward. Because what I think, if we're talking about just sustainability of materials for this second, I think the big issue we have in an industry is people who are not willing to listen. They're saying, this is it, this is what you'll be happy with, and this is what you have to use. So, you know, there was an article by, and it wouldn't generally be my politics, but Ed Miliband about, you know, how Just Stop Oil had done kind of a bad thing for progressing, which is so true, because people need to be brought with you on this journey. And the reality is, if you're working with like-minded people and people who want to push that and have a story to tell, and a story that people want to listen to, then actually you're going to get much further, much faster.
Well, I think from my side in particular, just recently, the stuff we've been doing, like that's opening doors for me as a manufacturer that I would probably never even considered or wanted to, or I wouldn't say wanted, but even thought about opening. But David, we've been in and done CPDs with structural engineers, civil engineers, and all these people, and the appetite is it's still there from these people, but they're not people I probably would have thought about engaging with. But Dave's got the connections in there, and I think I'd say they've been received very well as well.
I've personally been shocked by the numbers that have been when we talk, and you know, where we're looking so far has been more in the facade sort of thing. So Andy's part of the conversation as well, and the introduction to these people. And, you know, we've got it again next week.
Yeah.
And it's been looking at the facade engineer, and it's moving on from that. And I think that's as Matt said, how it's been received has been amazing. How it's the amount of people that come and actually want to listen and ask questions, and just the connections on that. And it's probably tackling it from a completely different perspective. I mean, I've spoken to Andy for years on Poratherm, which is Andy's key product, and you know, and the ability it has to make some changes in the market. And actually, when we did our sustainability thing, in January, the end of January, at Smith, and Matt spoke,
Where
and
I think
Andy.
I met you all.
Yeah, so that's we met us for the first time. I mean, there was, you know, as a brickwork contractor, putting on a sustainability event in coordination with Smiths, it's very different. And, you know, we had quite a few hundred people there.
It was packed,
amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that, I made this point when we spoke, Matt, about how, like you say, it was like, oh, brick people are doing a sustainability event. Again, there's still this perception that it's not something that's on your agenda, but actually it is. And I guess that's where the collaboration becomes really powerful. And also as well, I was just thinking then, like, collaboration means, obviously, like you said, it's opening up different ideas, it's opening up different markets. So it's opening up that diversity of people, that diversity of thinking, that cross-pollination. And I kind of think, you know, we talk a lot about recruiting more diversity within our organisations, and I think that is an important part of it. But actually, better collaboration can only strengthen that as well, I think.
I mean, what Dave's event basically showcased was that you can
I
have
didn't know anything about EPDs. That's what it showcased. But anyway,
that you can have manufacturers who are producing the same product in the same room, talking about the same thing and sharing what they're doing in terms of the journey.
Exactly.
And I don't think that happens enough.
It doesn't.
For us as an industry, I don't think people are kind of afraid of it. It's kind of a taboo subject. Oh, we can't go there because X manufacturer is there. But let's face it, the only way the whole industry is going to move forward is if we're all sat around the table.
Keep your enemies close and all that.
Yeah. And there's always going to be that competitive nature in terms of the product sale. But let's face it, we all ideally we want a greener world. We want a better environment, and the only way you get that is by collaborating together and hearing what the people are doing.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, to mention these groups, it was, and they were the ones who were invited. I'm not saying others wouldn't have come if hadn't been invited, but it was Vandersanden, it was Poratherm as represented by Andy, it was Plasmore Blocks, it was Ibstock, and it was Michelmersh, and Arup as well, representative from Arup, Lex spoke, and it was trying to mix it up, and I'll be honest with you, when we were doing it, I was probably getting a little bit overexcited because as we got closer, I was getting more and more worried that it was just going to be a completely washout, and that people wouldn't get it and people wouldn't understand, and actually that we were too basic in what we were talking about. But actually, when you're coming from a space of nobody talking to actually, well, this is some information. This is, part of, I hate the word journey, but part of this, and we're part of the solution. And this is the thing, I think, you talked about diversity there, and the reality is if you surround yourself with people who are like you, then you're always going to have the same result, and
exactly.
If it's not positive or negative. But the reality is when we talk and others, when we discuss, we have a kind of a diversity of ideas because we're coming from different backgrounds. So I think that's a major part of it, that actually there's different ways of looking at things and how things work, and I think that's so important. And obviously, Andy's Vanilla Ice reference really has just set the tone for the entire day now.
I was going to carry on the serious tone there for a second. But what's really refreshing about you, as in Lyons and Annoot, Dave, not just your handsome self, is in an industry which is so inherently small C conservative, and I've spoken to branch customers at E.H. Smith We've been doing porotherm demonstrations in the yard to try and get people to use it as an alternative if they're just doing small extensions or something like that. There was one builder who said to me, I would rather retire than do something different. And it's at that point that you go, right, okay, I'm not winning this conversation.
Yeah.
But what we've got with Lyons and Annoot is a contractor who's not in that frame of mind. And that is still, I think, pretty unusual.
I agree. I do, again, new girl on the block here, but I to find manufacturers so invested in it, to find a contractor so invested, and even what you're doing around apprenticeships, etc. And it kind of blew. I think that event was. I remember I was really poorly as well. Not that you need to know any of this, and I remember being really oh, I really don't know if I can make this event, but I really, really need to go. But it was kind of almost like game changing for me in a lot of ways, because it made me realise just how much is going on, how much good stuff is going on, and how much this collaboration is not happening enough. And you say stop, and this is what I mean genuinely. Like, how do people stop and create space for this? Like, it's not happening. You're doing it more now because you're seeing the benefits, you're reaping the benefits. But I don't know. I just still feel that people are not.
We did it for 4 years with zero benefits. We did it for 4 years for zero benefits for us. And what I mean by that is, obviously, it's financial at the end of the day, or commercial benefits. We did see benefits by the fact that we were looking at things differently. We were looking at our own carbon output as a business in terms of scope 1 and scope 2. But even in January, there was very little commercial or financial benefits, and for business, obviously, that is the thing that keeps you going.
That's what I mean. Like, you're unique in the fact that you did stop without any immediate return. I get it all the time. Even just what's the return on investment? What's the return on investment? What are we going to get from this? And we're always looking at it from a very short-sighted perspective. So how do we? I mean, obviously, you guys again are unique in the way that you're not doing that. But how do you get other people to do that? How do you stop and find those people?
Well, it does feed into the thing that links all three of our companies, is that we're privately owned.
Yeah.
So EH Smith is family owned, privately owned. Yeah. Vandersanden is the same. Lyons and Annoot the same. And that, I think, is such a powerful point of why we've got the ability to just take a pause, take a breath, rethink about how we're going to operate and function in the marketplace, because we're not at the behest of shareholders who are just purely investment vehicles and don't really care what the industry is that they're investing in. They just want a guaranteed return. The people who own our companies actually care about the industry. Yeah. A couple of years ago, we did some training with all of our trade counter staff through the Builders Merchants Federation. And the training was brilliant. He used to be a builder and then went on to do training with builders merchants. And he made the point to all of our staff who came through the training, and there was probably about 100 members of staff that we trained, you wouldn't own a builders merchants if you were just in it to make money. And he went through all the financials and said, so the family that owns EH Smith does it because they actually care about the company, and they care about the legacy that has gone before them, and they care about maintaining the future for the generations that follow as well, because you wouldn't go into it to make a buck, basically. And that's pretty true, because it is fairly dull. Builders merchanting is not an exciting and fun industry unless you're on our side, on the specification side, or if you're that way minded, talking to hairy palmed builders every day. But if your main driver is just to get a return on investment for your shareholders, you're not going to want to change anything at all unless it can increase your profit. So what Vandersanden have done... Yeah.
Well, to give it to zero campaign, what we do is... That's basically it.
The board tripled your investment without being asked. Yeah. So they can do that.
Pretty mega, yeah.
Have you tried that with your pay, Matt?
I'm still holding out.
How do you think they paid for the investment?
Yeah, exactly.
That's taken 3 pay cuts.
Swings and roundabouts, isn't it? But,
so there have been some really good events in the last few years. One that I went to a couple of years ago that was in Brighton to start with is called the Footprint exhibition conference. And that was focused very much on low carbon in construction. And it was such a refreshing feel to go into that space and hear from manufacturers, architects, contractors, consultants, engineers, all coming together, as well as clients, coming together to talk about how they can change construction to be more ethical, sustainable, environmentally minded, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Which is important. Yeah.
Because with the best will in the world, we can't all go back to living in mud huts or yurts in the forest and eating berries and all the rest of it. Because although
the way we're going, we might have no choice.
It's relatively tempting, and that's my summer holiday with my son sorted. But the reality of the world is we can't do that. So there's got to be a happy medium somewhere along the line that says we can continue to invest in manufacturing, but that manufacturing has to be better than it's been before. We can invest in training skills for the new generation of contractors that are coming through, whether it's bricklaying or carpentry or heating engineers or whatever it is, and we can invest in that, but something's got to change, and we can't just carry on doing what we've always done, because otherwise we'll just
get the same result.
Get exactly the same result. And that's not an option.
But we still are hardwired, so, to kind of think like that, aren't we? And to think that we need to. I know that it's difficult when you can see through that, right? And it's really hard to get your head around the fact that actually that is still really prevalent, but it is. Yeah. And you talk about these events, and there are so many great events going on. I agree with you, but I'm seeing this explosion of things, this explosion of conversations happening and events happening, but kind of the actual action is nowhere near what it needs to be.
I think it depends. I mean, a lot of our clients who work for many years are focused on doing better in what Andy was talking about there in terms of training everything. I mean, that's sustainability. That's the full sustainability package.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of the vital part to talk about. But it's I think we were originally when we first started moving on what we were doing. It was one was a letter we received from one client which asked the question is, have you looked at this ahead? And because that's no, we actually haven't. We're in terms of trying to be environmentally better on site. Yes, we use plastic pallets, we recycle and so on and so forth. But was what's the next step? And then I was at one of a supply chain meeting for a company that we work for, and I think their operations director was so passionate about what he was talking about when it came to reducing carbon. And it was probably a little bit of a moment for me where I was going, okay, wow, yeah, and looking at trying to look at things a little bit differently, and getting buy-in from the rest of the team, and kind of saying, look, we've got to push forward in this. So we did what we had to do, and in terms of that, and then we started talking to the manufacturers that we deal with. Where are they on their journey? What's going on? We need to be focused on this. But it was the initial point where the clients had said we need to change. And I remember sitting in a room with a lot of members of my peer group and from other companies, and conversation came up about that, and it was laughed at, and that was 5 years ago, and things have moved forward massively in that period. I think maybe 5 years, massively in that period where it's essential that we're all doing something, and it's essential that we this full sustainability circle as you mentioned, but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's the fact is, if you're going to offer opportunities to your clients, it's not about offering a shrugged opportunity. It's knowing what you're offering and knowing that it's better than what's already there, and knowing that that you've got nothing that's going to bite you in the backside later on. Because
there'll always be something to bite you in the backside.
There will, but if you do enough work on it, you're mitigating those, and that's it. We've in terms of our partnering and everything, we've kissed a few frogs and whatever else in terms of
that's another podcast.
Yeah, in terms of
is that a brick joke?
Yeah, not those frogs. And in terms of trying to get there, we've been told about fantastic things that are happening and whatever else, and you kind of have to stop and look at things and say, well, this isn't the way forward.
Well, I think this is the point as well, and I don't want to be like, the last thing I want to do is kind of be negative about change, because I think change is happening, but I also think there's a fine line between being realistic and staying positive as well. Does that if you see what I'm saying.
And change takes time, let's face it. And we've, like Dave said, 5 years, and then he's noticed the change in 5 years. Yeah. So where are we going to be in 5 years' time? Because that's taken probably some difficult conversations as well to try and get people along on the journey.
And we need people to lead that.
We do, and that's where it comes down to leadership. Yeah. And what I suppose what we're trying to do is lead in our fields collaboratively, just to show what is out there.
Yeah.
You can't get too bogged down in the this isn't working, what do we do next kind of mindset though.
No, I agree.
So I have a saying that a realist is just a smug pessimist. No offence. But we've got to be really positive about being able to actually deliver the change, because if we go in and there's even a hint that people detect that we're not fully behind our own pitch, our own product, our own service,
completely,
then they won't buy in.
And I've learned that as setting up my own business and going out there and obviously starting it with loads of like self-doubt and fear. And it's like, well, if I don't believe in it, who else is going to believe in it? And that's true in everything, isn't it? And I think you're absolutely right. You know, you've got to stay in that space and really truly believe, in the change that's happening. But again, it is just about also being honest about the barriers and the things that we still have got to overcome and face, but always know. And we don't always have the answers, right? We don't have the answers, and we have to own that, because I think sometimes if we don't, that's when we go down the route of greenwashing or, Yeah.
I think it's I mean, these guys are masters of their trade, because I think probably through experience, the questions that, obviously doing quite a bit with Matt recently, the questions that are being asked, and you can see it's very similar questions all the time, but Matt's got the answer, and he's not when he's answering it, and Andy's the same at our event, but they can answer the questions with certainty, and I think that's a huge part of that. I mean, what you often find, and what we've come across, is something on paper might look fantastic, but there's all these other elements that go around it. And people are not, and this is what we're seeing with this collaboration. I mean, the reality is, and, I was at Vandersanden the same time as you, and, they were asking questions, and they wanted to know how another product that they might have coming out, how it could be better, what does it need, where do we need to go? And it was brilliant, because the reality is they were trying to get rid of the ambiguity before it came. And that's absolutely vital. And because, I mean, Andy with Bortherm, and Andy knows this. I mean, as a business, we worked in Germany in the 90s, and they used clay blocks. Very, very different. But any bricklayer who probably worked in Germany in the 90s would have used clay blocks, and they have a very different impression of it than what it is now. So even in terms of selling it to the bricklayers, it has to be, it's not what you were doing in the 90s. If you were in Germany, it's very, very different. So the fact that it's all come as a learning curve, and how things are better with either, makes it so much easier then for others to see that it's potentially the right way.
Do you think, by the way, I wish there was less ambiguity over that kebab in Brussels, but anyway.
Awkward. Was that you?
No, you had to be there, I think.
Oh, right, okay. I was going to say, no offence for not being invited, by the way.
No. It was a great trip, and for me, it really opened, like I said to you, it really opened my eyes to kind of what's going on behind the scenes. But I think it's, I guess what I kind of took from that, Dave, is it's about us all having that shared vision, isn't it? It's about us all kind of understanding, because like you say, there's going to be changes happening, there's going to be ambiguity, there's going to be, things we don't know. But I guess it's if we all have that shared understanding. And this kind of brings me on to kind of sustainability as well. Like, do we all have the same... I think we all kind of understand what we mean. Well, I say all of us, I don't know, but in terms of materiality with sustainability, but do we all really understand what it means holistically? Are we all on the same page? Are we all wanting to, whenever I do training, whenever I speak to anybody about what I do, there's always misunderstanding or several different interpretations of what sustainability means. Are we even all on the same page there?
And probably not, if we're being honest. I mean, I'd say the three of us and the four of us around here, definitely, and I'd say a lot of the people that we talk to when we do our talks, they're aligned, but they're not in the same way. There are some people that are aligned very differently, as we found at one of our more recent events that we did. But again, it's I don't think that was a bad thing, because that level of disruption does challenge the norm, and it does get people thinking and challenging the way that things have been done.
Big fan of that. Big fan of bringing.
I'm not a massive fan. I'm not a massive fan.
Do you know one thing I always say though, and this is one thing, and this is where I know, definitely you're kind of on my page with this. I think all of you are, but I know Dave's a little bit more like me with his social media in terms of like, we'll talk about the things that people are talking about behind closed doors, but don't necessarily want to talk about in open spaces. And then there needs to be more of that, I think. We
all protect our businesses so much, and the reality is, if you're doing it right, you're going to do it the way you do it. And I think, it's a natural, it's an old fashioned way. But the reality is we need to talk about. I'm going to say skill shortage, but I hate the idea of it. I think there's much bigger issues than that.
Agreed.
I think we see so many people who want to moan and but they're not coming up with solutions. No. And you had Gary on a few, the previous, Gary, it's Gary Staines. And what Gary's doing is absolutely fantastic. And it works for that part of the industry he's in, which is different from mine. But so many parts that he's doing, we're doing, and how it all comes about. And I think it's
not mind blowing, by the way.
None of it is.
It's we seem to have just forgotten the simple stuff.
Yeah.
The basics.
Yeah.
I'd say that younger generation that's coming through, they want to see the changes.
Yeah, they do.
They're almost expecting it to happen. So it's like, who's going to lead the way to get us there? I suppose it's our generation really that have to try and push it.
I'm the younger generation. Just
are you? Yeah. Oh, you sorry, I must have difficult paper round or something. I must have missed that. But like we've got to challenge that really. We've got to kind of do what we can to make the impact that we want.
That integration as well of our generation, the younger generation. That's a difficult one as well. I don't know how you feel about this, but I do see a lot of it, and I feel like I see both sides of the coin. I am obviously a millennial. I say obviously, you wouldn't know that. I think I'm like, yeah, I'm just a millennial, and obviously I've got a very, 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 very strong work ethic. And then you've got a lot of people that I work with that have got similar work ethics. They're leading up businesses. They're kind of, in really senior positions. They're like, but the younger generation, Gen Z, they don't want to work. They're not committed. They're very entitled. And I just think, again, this is another massive topic and conversation, but I just think there is again, like anything, if we can just open up the conversations and stop having the divide being so massive by having, these spaces and this collaboration. I know we're going on a bit of a tangent there, but
every generation is different. We're different to our parents.
Exactly,
our
this
parents
is the
are
point.
different to our grandparents, and how have we made the world work for all these years? I mean, I've put that to Andy because he's obviously the oldest. But how do we making it work? But the reality is it's always handed down, and there's probably stuff that our parents looked at when we were growing up and said, well, that's not the way we did it, or we should be doing something else, and whatever else. It's just harnessing.
But it's embracing
that.
It's embracing it. Like we've got to embrace AI. We've got to embrace. We've got, and it's just we're just so like we don't want to do it like that, and how dare they think about that, and we didn't have to do it like that, and why do we still have to think that we need to? The younger generation make a great point. I saw my mum burn out. I saw my dad burn out for what? For the slightest increase in minimum wage, and it's like I don't want to do that. And fair enough, and they don't have to. We don't have to stick to the same ways of doing things in terms of our workplaces and work cultures. We're not doing it in terms of technology and innovation. So why are we still doing it in terms of the way that we work?
That's probably an area where the construction industry needs to get better in embracing AI, embracing technology, like you think,
and embracing social media and podcasts.
Exactly, but you think when we were all younger, like a lot of the younger people in schools now, the concept of not having the internet around would probably completely blow their mind. Yeah. Because all they have to do.
I mean, it blows mine, but there we go. Like when ChatGPT went down recently, and I was like, no.
And you just kind of think we have to bring them along on our journey with us, don't we?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's also not allowing ourselves to get sucked into the societal, you've got to take one side or the other approach, because life is full of nuance and grey areas and compromises, and that's where we all sit. There is going to be a level of compromise somewhere along the line for someone, probably everyone, and change is inevitable. It doesn't matter what you want or what you think is right, wrong or indifferent, change is going to happen. So the mindset that we need to have as the people kind of leading the conversation in our sectors is either accept the fact that change is happening and be part of the change, or have change imposed upon you, in which case you're just going to become even more miserable and
and resist it.
Absolutely. And that's the barrier that we have to try and overcome. And that is hard, because part of that is cross-generational. Part of that is just a case of the industry that we're in seems to be just
Slow.
Reluctant to make any kind of change at all. And when something does come in, either it's ground up unicorn horns and, and magic fairy dust, and Dave sits at it and goes, that's not going to work. Or people just dismiss it because it's something new. And that's where we sit in the builders merchants world. We're constantly being pitched new materials, new solutions, new things, this, that and the other. We've got to decide what's a sticker, what's going to be around, what is genuinely going to do what it says.
What's a sticker? Do you know what? I went straight into the dentist chair then, thinking I was going to get my smiley sticker, but a sticker is in what's going to stick.
As in one that sticks. Yeah, and we've got to try and make that assessment for our own business. Like, what's a good business case to have this on our shelves, and then how can we work with other people to introduce that whatever the material is into the marketplace, whether it is for your white van building customer or whether it's for a main contractor that Dave's going to be working with as well. There is so much in construction that it's really hard to pin everything down, because you've got people doing DIY jobs, extensions, one-off house builds, all the way through to building Google's new offices and revamping TV Centre and all of that kind of stuff. It's really hard to find materials that fit every single type of project.
Yeah.
And manufacturers really only have so much capability.
And you can't find, one person to fit every type of project.
No, absolutely not.
We are going to have to wrap it up, but I just wanted to kind of say one thing, like kind of what you've just said there, Andy, War and Peace, but it was brilliant. Thank you very much. No, it was great. I think you've really kind of made a really important point there in terms of, we want to be part of the change, be part of the change. And I just want to leave it on the note that imagine if we were all on this together and we all wanted to be a part of the change. Imagine, look at what has already happened in the construction industry. Look at what we are already achieving, and imagine what more we could achieve if we were all on the same page and collaborating in the way that we all are here right now. So, yeah, thank you. Obviously, I could talk to you for much longer on this, but thank you so much for being part of the conversation on the Hill Approach podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.